Thanks, everyone. My name is Melissa Brodowski. I'm with ACF's Office of Early Childhood Development. We're so excited that so many of our ACF and HHS grantees have joined. We will be starting in just a minute. I know one of our presenters hopefully will be on, but just to let folks know in terms of logistics, all the participants are currently muted. We do encourage you to use the Q&A feature on the Zoom. So if you have some questions along the way, please feel free to put it there and we will be able to try to respond to as many as we can. Also appreciate the introductions people have been doing on the chat. Feel free to introduce yourself and say where you're from. Great to see so many of you from across the country who've been joining us already. And then we also have closed captioning. So if you're interested and need that, you can just press the closed caption button. Let me just give a second, because I know our Deputy Assistant Secretary from ACF is just about to join. So we're just really, really pleased to have this opportunity with all of you and supporting children and families across this country. So let's give her a second. Damien, do you see Deborah logging on? There she is. Okay, great. So I know we can see as she's logging on, and we're also giving a few more folks a chance to get on to the Zoom. But Deborah, so excited. I'm going to transition it over to you. I'm pleased to introduce ACF's Deputy Assistant Secretary for External Affairs and really leading the charge at ACF and HHS on collaborating on this training. So Deborah, I'll turn it over to you. And Deborah, I'm not sure if you're on mute and able to unmute. Just to say that we have gotten such a tremendous response to this training across HHS and ACF. I think you're unmuting, Deborah. So
can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Oh, wonderful. Alrighty, pardon me, team. This is what you get in a technologically set up dynamic for these types of meetings. So pardon me. I'm glad to join today's discussion and kick us off with a bit of an introduction. I am Deborah Johnson, the Deputy Assistant Secretary for External Affairs at ACF. ACF and HHS are thrilled to partner with the White House, the Treasury, and all of you. An enormous amount of gratitude that I have to all of you for participating on today's Navigator training. It is a part of historic opportunity to provide.
Hey, Deborah, it looks like folks, including me, can't hear you. I think there might be an audio issue. We heard you at the very beginning.
Yes, I think you need to get either closer to your mic or dial in by phone.
Can you hear me now?
It's just a little low, I think. That's all. And maybe if you.
So I will, work through and speak a little bit louder. As you will hear from the presenters in a few minutes, we have made great progress with the child tax credit, and now we're asking for your help to focus on outreach to families that may not usually file taxes and may still be in dire need of financial support. We are also deeply committed to outreach efforts that increase equity for Black, Latino, and AAPI communities, many of whom were impacted the most during the pandemic and could really benefit from these resources. As the Health and Human Services Department, we are so excited to see the response to the training. We have almost 2,000 registered in the training today and tomorrow. We are excited by reaching the trusted messengers who you are, childhood educators, teachers, Head Start staff, home visitors, family support workers, social workers, family advocates, supervisors, program directors, and community partners. You are exactly the people we want to reach. I want to thank our federal partners who are working closely with us on outreach efforts. Some highlights of our work across agencies underway include ACF is partnering with the Office of Head Start, AmeriCorps, and the National Head Start Association to do targeted outreach in local communities to reach more families who might be eligible. ACF is partnering with the Department of Education to host a Spanish language training for the early childhood community and other partners. And finally, each of the various offices across ACF and HHS are also working with their grantees and our regional offices to get this information to communities. And we welcome grantees from other agencies such as HRSA, HRSA, MCHB, CMS, and ACL. They're all here on the call with us today. We are really working together on a whole of government approach to make sure families get the help they need. This is an opportunity where all of government is coming together to ensure that these families receive the funding that will help lift families out of poverty. I am now so pleased to turn this over to the White House and Treasury team who are doing the training today. We are excited to have you join us. Mike.
Thank you so much, Deborah. Oh, can folks hear me? Can folks hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
great.
We've got you.
Amazing. Thank you, folks. Thank you, everybody, both to those who are here early and got to see the behind the curtain of all of our Zoom learnings. And thank you so much, Deborah, for both the introduction and for the incredible work that y'all are leading every single day. My name is Yasmin Raji. I'm a senior advisor at the Treasury Department focused on recovery program outreach. And I'm going to be sharing my screen. So hoping for thoughts and prayers here to make sure that this all works. And then we'll ask my colleagues to interrupt if you all can't hear me, as my screen will be shared. So I won't be able to see the chat. So just give me 1 second. All right. So we are here today, as Deborah said in her opening, to talk about a monumental program, which is the Child Tax Credit, truly the most sweeping anti-poverty program that we've really seen in a generation. And we're really excited to dive in to that today. So what I'm going to do is give us an overview of what the Child Tax Credit is. I know many of you all are already really steep, but make sure that you have all the same exciting statistics and facts that we do. Then I'm going to walk you through childtaxcredit.gov, which is a really easy to use website that we just released a few weeks ago jointly as Treasury, White House, and Code for America. We'll walk you through that so you know how to sign people up yourselves. And that will include a demo of what we call the non-filer sign-up tool. We'll also talk about all the materials that are going to land in your inboxes after this training. And then Mike Schmidt, who is the brain behind a lot of the policies here, our in-house international expert on all things child tax credit, is going to answer some questions in the Q&A. So with that, I'm going to dive right in with some words in someone far better equipped to talk about all of this than I am, which is Vice President Kamala Harris. And you will hear in her own words a little bit about this program.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today and participating in this training. It is critical that we get the word out about the Child Tax Credit, and we would not be able to do this work without you. With the expansion of the Child Tax Credit, we are supporting our nation's working families. We are strengthening our nation's middle class, and we are helping to lift half of America's children who are living in poverty out of poverty. Just think about that. The impact of that will be historic, seismic even. And it will be felt not only by the children of today, it will be felt by families and communities and by our country for generations to come. And that is something to celebrate. And as we celebrate, let us also remember our work is not yet finished. We need to make sure American families know about this credit and how if folks file taxes for 2019 or 2020 or a stimulus check, they do not have to do anything. They will get the child tax credit automatically. If they did not file taxes for 2019 or 2020 or a stimulus check, they do have to take action. They need to visit childtaxcredit.gov. I'm going to say that again, childtaxcredit.gov, and fill out a simple form. The President and I need your help to spread the word and to fight to make expansion of the child tax credit permanent. You know, after the President signed the American Rescue Plan into law, I said this: Americans will see what we did here, and they will feel the impact of this bill for generations to come. And that is certainly true. So thank you again for your partnership and for your leadership, and know that the President and I will never stop fighting for our children, for our families, and for our nation. Thank you and take care. Hi.
All right. So as you all heard in the voice of the Vice President herself, this is a seismic program in her own words. And our goal here today, as we talk about what that program is and how we can all have a role to play, how we all have a role to play in signing more folks up, we've got two goals. First and foremost, as the Vice President said, a lot of people, in the tens of millions of people, are already getting the child tax credit benefits automatically or in a check in the mail. And our first goal is to make sure that all those folks know just how important this program is and what the implications are, and also that this program could go away if we are not sort of actively talking about it and screaming about its benefits from the rooftop, and that we all sort of see what the impact has been on so many, the vast majority of American families with children. The second goal is there's roughly 5 to 8 million folks who could be eligible for this program who are not yet signed up and who are not getting those benefits that could be really, really life-changing for families in dire need of that kind of extra cushion in their monthly incomes. And so we're going to talk about how we can make sure that those folks, that the shorthand we use is non-filers. Those are the people who haven't yet filed taxes for one reason or another. And we want to make sure that those folks, that's not a barrier to them getting the benefits that they're eligible for. So let's talk about what this program is and what materially this means for families and why it's such a groundbreaking program for Americans. So first and foremost, we're talking about more money for every child and the vast majority of American children. We're talking about any family really outside of the top, tippy top 1% is benefiting. We're talking about $3,600 total for every single child under 6 years old. And that's a $1,600 increase from what it used to be. And you all know as well as I do, $1,600 increase is something that really can be transformative, especially during such a trying moment for so many families. For kids between 6 and 17 years old, it can be up to $3,000 total, which is a $1,000 increase from what it was before. So that means that all working families are eligible to get the full credit, or will get the full credit, if they make under $150,000 a year for a couple, or $112,500 for a single family with children, or if they filed as head of household. You all know just as well as I do, that is pretty much everyone in this country. I wish more people were making more than $150,000 a year, but this is a really sweeping program that for every family, whether they identify as middle class, whether they are really on the margins, they are benefiting in really, really serious material ways here. As the Vice President said in her opening, a lot of this is through automatic monthly payments. So for people who've already filed their taxes or who already filed for their, who got their stimulus checks, they get these automatically, their child tax credit payments in their bank accounts without having to do anything from July through September of this year. And that's $300 each month for every single child under 6 years old, and $250 each month for every child between 6 and 17 years old. And then they'll get the second half of their child tax credit payment when they file their taxes in 2022. So this basically means people who file their taxes just keep on doing what they're doing, and automatically in their bank account, they're getting some really, really serious gains because this is something that will really benefit so many families. The people who get their IRS refunds through direct deposit, that's people like me, will get that automatically in their bank account in the 15th of the month. People who don't do that, people like my parents, will get the payment by snail mail around the 15th as well. So this is, like I mentioned, and as the Vice President said herself, this is a transformative program that helps almost every single family in this country. And the way that it's helping families is in the ways that we all really need. This is a cash program. So for some people, that's going to help them pay rent after having lost a job. Maybe families, struggling during the pandemic, or maybe folks who were underemployed even regardless of the pandemic. For others, it's going to put food on the table. For some, this is going to be money for college or money for, a broken, something broken in the car that needs to be fixed to be able to get the kids to school. And we all know, you all know from your day-to-day work all across the country, that when parents can afford to live and they're not worried about just making their basic expenses every single month, their kids are the ones who also do better. So you all know just as well as I do, families who aren't stressed about that tiny little, ability to make ends meet, their kids have better health. They have higher educational attainment, higher future earnings, lower stress levels. We could all use some lower stress levels these days, and this is a program that will be helping families with that, and already is all across the country. You also know as well as I do that too many families, in fact, 40% of families can't afford an unexpected $400 expense. A $400 expense could be something like something going wrong in your car. It could be, with as many natural disasters as there are, it's over $400 in unexpected expenses for folks. So this is a program that allows families a little bit of breathing room so that extra, $400 is not something that really breaks the bank and puts families in some cases, on the streets or having to borrow money and so on and so forth. Finally, beyond the material difference that this can make for individual families, this is also a program that will stabilize the economy, which is good for everybody. We've all lived through a really brutal couple of years, including the biggest recession of our lifetimes. And thanks to the stimulus checks, or the stimmies as many of us call them, our economy is now stable, and this is helping that continue. In fact, MasterCard just released a study of how this money is getting used, going back into the economy. People are spending this on back to school stuff for their kids, on groceries. That's good for everybody, not just for the individual families. So there's a few amazing numbers that I think are sort of highlight just how important this program is. The first is that one child tax credit payment, the very first one, reduced financial anxiety for 56% of families. We shouldn't have that many families with so much financial anxieties, but we do. And this is something that is really helping during a tough moment for all of us in this country, helping to reduce one more of the anxieties and provide that breathing room like we talked about. The first round of child tax credit payments also slashed hunger rates. This is something that we see in the numbers of families with kids. It is having a much bigger difference for those families than, unfortunately, for those who don't have kids, who aren't benefiting from this program. We're seeing some real differences in what that means for hunger rates and for the ability to have a sort of stable financial future. Overall, tons more numbers that we can talk about. Another favorite of mine is that 20% of the, I'm looking at too many numbers that got me excited. Half of parents also use this money for food, and that slashed food insufficiency by 20% for households with children. That is huge, and that is something that we need to be shouting about from the rooftops and making sure that this is a permanent program so that food insecurity is not a reality for American families. So, like I mentioned, these are really, really key numbers and a sweeping amount of reforms that are reducing hardship for families. Mentioned the food instability number. I got ahead of myself here with food instability falling for families by 24% if they have kids right after those first payments went out. Also, a 43% decline in food insecurity for low-income families with children who receive that first monthly payment. That is huge. I mean, again, we should not be having these numbers in this country to begin with, but just these payments on a regular basis are changing what the realities are for so many people. Finally, the share of parents who had missed mortgage or rent payments and the share of families who'd had difficulty with their expenses, that fell with the delivery of the first payment. Again, if $400 is something that sets a family back, just missing 1 month of rent can really be detrimental, and this is really helping with those basic needs. Finally, this is sort of what those same terms are, but in chart form. And my share screen is blocking a little bit of my chart, so I'm just going to move this along. I hope folks aren't seeing that. So this is a chart of people who are reporting sometimes or often not having enough to eat. And if you look at the area with the red circle, you see the sharp drop off between the purple line being families with children, and just how sharp that drop off is around the time of those child tax credit payments, which again, we all need every single thing that we possibly can have to make sure that every family in our community has enough to eat. And this is something that has proven we can make some real material differences for people. So with that, I'm going to see if I can hop to my next. Oh, here we go. Sorry, I got ahead of myself one more time. 1 second. All right. So a couple more things, and then we're going to dive into what I'm really excited about, which is talking about how to sign up some non-filers to increase just how many people this program is touching. But when we're talking about a huge impact, we're talking about 26 million lower income children who, due to this program, are going to be lifted up out of poverty. That is huge. 26 million children who, because of this fully expanded child tax credit, they would have received less than the full credit because their families didn't qualify. They were earning too little. You all know as well as I do, when we're talking about impact, the disproportionate impact of so many of these programs on Black and Latino children. This is a program that has allowed for half of Black and Latino children and 1 in 3 of all children to benefit from a program that previously they did not receive the full child tax credit for. So that is a huge, huge, huge set of numbers for communities of color. So how do families get the money? The Vice President talked about it a little bit. Tax filers, like we mentioned, they get it automatically. So we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about that because many of you, hopefully on the line, and members of your families, of your communities, have already gotten this. And that includes people who filed their taxes for 2019 or 2020. And then also for people who signed up for their economic impact payments or stimulus checks or stimmies from the IRS. All those folks are already in the system getting this money automatically, whether a check in the mail or whether automatic direct deposit. And what I'm really excited to dig in on is non-filers, or the people who don't qualify or who have not filed their taxes. They're still eligible. And that's 5 to 8 million people that we have the opportunity to try to reach together. And it's going to be a really all hands on deck effort to do that. And so these are the people who've not filed taxes, didn't register for those economic impact payments or stimulus checks. And if they go to childtaxcredit.gov, which we're going to dive into how you all can help them navigate that website, they are able to do that. And they also, it's not too late for them to sign up for their stimulus checks. So that's one more thing, sort of reducing some of that economic anxiety. So we're going to dive into what the tool is. And as a very first step, basically, we're going to go through what this looks like. We're going to play a little video of what the tool looks like to navigate, and then we'll actually click through some of it. And what you all, as our navigators around the country and folks connected to many of the people who could benefit from that non-filer sign-up tool, will work with folks to set at least 20 minutes aside to use this tool. 20 minutes is not a lot to get these really life-changing benefits. And this is the list of things that people are going to need to make sure that those 20 minutes really are 20 minutes and don't turn into to much more. And that's having a reliable mailing address, a phone number or email address, their children's social security numbers, the parent's social security number or ITIN number, and the parent's bank account information if they want the payment by direct deposit. Some of these folks may not have bank accounts, and so just providing a reliable mailing address will allow for those checks to come in the mail. So with that, I'm going to turn to a little video that's going to walk you through the website and how it looks to actually sign folks up. So just give me 1 second to make sure that that is working. Hold on 1 second. It looks like it is a little bit slow.
This video will show you how to use Code for America's simplified tax filing portal, GetCTC. GetCTC is a new tool that allows families without a tax filing obligation to file a simplified 2020 tax return to access the new expanded child tax credit and any of the 3 stimulus payments. GetCTC e-files a simplified return directly with the IRS. It's mobile-friendly, available in English and Spanish, and chat assistance is available at any point in the process. People without children can use it too, just to access stimulus payments. First, GetCTC will go through a few steps to confirm that it's the right tool for me. The tool will check first that I'm allowed by the IRS to do simplified filing, since those with higher incomes are required to file a full return. GetCTC will then warn me that I could get even more money by filing a full return, since I can't get the EITC or state credits from this tool. Those who choose this option are sent to getyourrefund.org, which allows families to file full tax returns through VITA services. For now, I'll opt to continue with this tool. Next, GetCTC will check whether I filed a 2020 return this year already. If I already submitted a return, the IRS would reject a new one I file through this tool. And the tool will check if I filed a 2019 return. If I did, the tool would confirm whether I needed to file this new return at all, and if so, it would collect my 2019 adjusted gross income, which the IRS requires from filers for authentication purposes. In this case, I'll say that I didn't file last year. Finally, GetCTC will confirm I lived in the United States last year, and it will confirm that no one can claim me as a dependent, since that would make me ineligible for CTC and stimulus payments. In the next section, GetCTC asks for some basic information about me. I'll enter my name, date of birth, and social security number. Note that I can also enter an ITIN. As required by the IRS, GetCTC asks for my phone number. It also asks if I was a member of the armed forces in 2020, since that could impact the amount of my recovery rebate credit. GetCTC does not require users to create an account and does not require them to have an email address. Users simply have to sign up using their phone or their email. In this case, I'll choose to sign up by phone. GetCTC will send me a 6-digit code that I must enter to confirm that phone number is indeed mine. For purposes of this demo, I'll enter a fake code on this page. In the next section, if I'm married, GetCTC will collect needed information about my spouse. I'll enter my spouse's name, date of birth, and social security number, or ITIN. After I enter my spouse's information, GetCTC will display what I entered to confirm it's right. In the next section, GetCTC allows me to list my 2020 dependents. Rather than assume I've read all the rules, GetCTC asks me all the questions I need to answer to make sure I can claim my dependents. Keep in mind that the pages users see in this section very much depend on the answers they provide. First, I'll enter my dependent's basic information: name, date of birth, and relationship to me. GetCTC will ask a couple of other specific scenarios to confirm eligibility in certain cases. Next, GetCTC will ask me to confirm a few more criteria. If at any point my dependent doesn't meet the main criterion, GetCTC will ask whether one or more valid exceptions apply. Once it is clear that I can claim this dependent, GetCTC will ask for their social security number or adoption taxpayer identification number. Behind the scenes, GetCTC will determine which credits my dependent is eligible for. Finally, GetCTC will show me a list of my dependents, including whether they are eligible for CTC or only for stimulus payments. I can keep repeating this process until all my dependents are recorded. For now, I'll say I only have one dependent. In the next section, GetCTC will help me claim any stimulus payments I missed out on. While the IRS will calculate and issue the third stimulus payment automatically using the information on this return, the IRS requires families to calculate for themselves any amount of the first 2 payments they missed out on and report that amount directly on their return as the recovery rebate credit. GetCTC makes this process easier by calculating how much families should have received. If I got this amount, I would skip this section. Instead, I'll say I received less than this amount, and I have missing stimulus to claim. GetCTC will then help me figure out how much I received in the first 2 payments, including providing some tips about where to find the information. I'll say in this case that I received $1,200 in the first payment, and that I didn't receive any of the second payment. GetCTC will then let me review the amount I'm claiming, and confirm that I would like to claim it. Finally, GetCTC will collect my payment information. and allow me to review and submit my return. I can select direct deposit or a mailed check. In this case, I'll select direct deposit. GetCTC asks me to confirm that my name is on the bank account, so the payment is not rejected. I'll provide my routing number and my account number. And finally, we'll have the chance to confirm my information. The IRS also requires that I provide my mailing address. GetCTC allows me to enter identity protection pins for anyone in my family who has one, and provides more information about what an IP pin is. I'll say that no one in my family has one. Now, I can review all the information I've submitted and go back to edit anything that's wrong. On this page, as required by the IRS, I set a 5-digit PIN that I can use to authenticate when I file next year. Finally, I'll agree to the legalese on the last page, and I'll file. Just like that, I've filed my simplified return. GetCTC will alert me within a couple days whether my return has been accepted or rejected by the IRS. You can find GetCTC at getctc.org. For more resources about the CTC and stimulus payments, visit getctc.org/navigators.
All right. So now we're getting all sorts of fun YouTube recommendations. Let's see if I can exit out of this. Here we go. All right. So what is the bottom line here is that if the Simpsons can sign up for the child tax credit payment, all of you can be great navigators to different members of your communities and different folks that you serve. What I'm going to walk through now is what it is, the sort of screen share of what it looks like to go actually through the non-filer tool. And you're going to get a bunch of links after this call of all the different steps to actually get to that page. And I'm going to walk you through that. I know for many of us, as easy as this website is, and I promise it is one of the reason we've released this jointly with the White House and Code for America was because of feedback that the other resource that we had was really complicated. So this is a simplified, mobile-friendly, bilingual page. I promise all of you can use it. And so I'm going to walk you through sort of how you get there. And then if you forget everything from this presentation, I'll show you where to go for all of the information to refresh your memory along the way as you sign people up. So first step, you're going to go to childtaxcredit.gov. I know here it says whitehouse.gov/childtaxcredit. That's where it sends you once you go to childtaxcredit.gov. You'll see a website that has all of the information that you need, and this will be your first stop. All the information that you need, everything that we're covering in this presentation is all on this website. So then you will scroll down, you'll find this button for non-filer sign up, and that's going to take you to this tab. This is going to be all the information that you could possibly need for non-filers. I know for many of us, we like to read everything before we then present to get someone else on there. For those of you that's your thing, this is where you can find anything that you want in English or in Spanish. I know many of you all are from parts of the country where you're going to be doing this all bilingually. You'll have everything that you need here. So you'll find out all the information here along the way. And then here you'll have a link to the non-filer sign-up tool, which, like I mentioned, you can use on a mobile phone for those of you who are doing outreach and aren't schlepping your laptop around. And it's also available in Spanish. And also, if you want to look at any of the numbers that I mentioned during this presentation, all of those are on here. All of the questions that you might have are on there. So you can click either above or here for non-filer sign-up tool. And then you're going to get access to all of these resources here, which is, again, all the things that you need actually for signing people up as navigators, which so many of you all are doing. So here is a little section about how to get started as a navigator. And that demo video that we just watched, you could click to right here and watch that short demo again. If you saw it, you didn't take the notes that you wish that you had, you can watch that again. And similarly, you can get additional resources on how to walk through. If you're not a video learner, you can click through and get the actual word by word screenshotted version of the video that we just saw there. Line by line, you can print this out and have it there with you. All of this to say is, again, new technology, new tools can be intimidating. They can make some of us feel like we don't quite know how to do this. I promise that this is a tool that every single person on this line will be able to use And not only can you use it, but we really are excited for your partnership here because like I believe I mentioned earlier on, and if I didn't, I want to re-emphasize this. If there's one note that you take, non-filers, or the people who've not filed taxes, but the 5 to 8 million people who are eligible, every bit of research that we have done is that they will not sign up and go through all these steps independently without someone there to walk them through it. So each of you has a critical role to play to make sure that families are able to pay their bills, able to get those groceries on the table, and each of you is equipped to do that miraculously well with all of this information. So I'm going to just walk through a couple final slides, and then we're going to open up for Q&A. How can you help with all of that? You'll have all those resources. You'll get them all in email. You can click through, print out, whatever you like. And then each of you is in a different part of the country and may have different ways that you do outreach. So you can sign up non-filers anywhere and everywhere, wherever people might be that haven't yet signed up for this program. You can do that through events. I know that's tough with Delta. Maybe that's community events distance. Maybe that's virtual events. It can also be training other people in your communities. We hope that many of you become experts in this in these next few weeks, train others through this same bit of information so that there's more and more of us who are equipped to sign up friends, family members, community members, et cetera. And then again, I know some of this stuff is tough during Delta, but sharing flyers in schools and grocery stores and barbershops, in WIC clinics and community health centers, wherever people are that may not have filed their taxes. These are folks who, most folks who don't file taxes are doing so for a reason. Either they are too poor to, they're under the sort of income levels of needing to file taxes. Maybe they're, a family who's suffered from domestic violence and they're not filing taxes for fear of their safety. There's all sorts of very valid reasons why people may not have done that. All of the places where you think that non-filers may be are great places to share flyers. Social media is also a great place. You know where folks gather. You all have access to great pages. And then the more partnership, the better here. We're doing these trainings with as many groups like you all that are connected to other organizations, local, national, regional. So partnering with whether it's school districts, parents groups, childcare centers, et cetera, you all are the experts on who those groups might be, where those places might be, and use your creativity and your expertise to know where to go there. In the email that I mentioned, you're also going to get some material. So you don't need to build your own flyer. We all know that can take a little while. So you're going to get a flyer with White House branding, with all of the kind of top line steps in English and in Spanish that you can post wherever you think is right to reach those non-filer communities. And you'll also get an outreach email. So if you're not going to be doing printed flyers, but you've got a great email list, or you've got some individuals or families you want to reach out to, you'll have an email that you can customize, and it'll have all the links. You don't need to remember any of them there. And you'll also get, I saw in the chat earlier a question about this presentation. You'll also get a PDF version of it in English so that you can go through any of the things that we talked about that you may not have noted down. You'll have there. And also, you can present this. I just learned how to present this recently. You can be the one presenting this to your community next week. This is the website that I showed you all. This is the non-filer sign-up tool. You're also going to get that in your email. This is a website, but you'll get the link to it. And this is for you. This is for you as a navigator, outlining every single one of those steps that we talked about. And also, none of us is going to be a Mike Schmidt with the expertise of every single detail. I can't answer half the questions that he does, but there are going to be some of those common questions that definitely do come up and that all of us should be prepared to answer. You don't need to memorize them. You'll have them all in this document. So the only thing you need to remember from this presentation, and you don't even need to remember because it's going to be in the email, is childtaxcredit.gov. And then remember that we're talking mostly about non-filers at this point of the presentation, but for folks who've gotten that first child tax credit payment, folks will need to file taxes in 2022 in order to get that second half of the child tax credit payment. So with that, thank you all so much for being here today. I'm going to turn it back over to Deborah, I believe, and then we're going to open up the Q&A with Mike. Or maybe to Melissa, to either Melissa or Deborah.
Great. Yeah, I said I would help with a number of several questions in the chat and also some that have come in. So I'll do my best. There are several questions, Mike, about parents who had babies year 2021, and can they claim the credit? What should they do? They had a baby in November, that kind of thing. So Any, if you can speak to that.
Great.
would be great.
Well, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Mike Schmidt. I'm a senior advisor with the Treasury Department. I work on all things child tax credit, and so thrilled to have such a large group, such a committed group helping us with our outreach efforts. And I can tell from the chat and the questions that everyone is very engaged and really asking all the right questions. So it's really great to see that. So I appreciate that, and I'll give you our latest and greatest in terms of answers. New kids, big questions. New kids in 2021. Key thing to know: they are eligible for the 2021 child tax credit. Parent has a kid this year; they are eligible for that full $3,600 for that kid. Question: will they be able to sign up for advance payments this year? Right now, the IRS has not rolled out that functionality. So the IRS is working on that right now. They'll provide more guidance on that in the weeks to come. But regardless, if you're talking to a family that just had a kid, you should tell them, file your taxes early next year. You will get $3,600. See other people flagging, earned income tax credit and other, there are other tax benefits that will be available to them as well, potentially, if they file. So definitely, I think it's good to share that information.
Thanks, Mike. And then just a quick question. Can you remind people of what the deadline is? Because it's getting close to the end of the year, what people should note for deadline for applying.
So the deadline for the Get CTC tool that Yasmin walked through is in mid-November. So we have a couple months to get folks signed up here.
Okay, great. And then, as you can tell from the audience, there's a lot of different kinds of families that people are serving. So there are questions around kinship families, grandparents, even foster parents, whether they might qualify for the child tax credit, if you could.
Great questions, really important questions. So the basic idea is that if you're related to the child and you live with the child and you're supporting the child, you're eligible to claim the child tax credit. So if you're a grandparent and you're living with that child for more than half the year, then you're eligible for the credit. If you're a foster parent and you're living with a child for more than half the year, you are eligible for the credit. You just have to meet those eligibility criteria.
And then there was also several questions related to when there's joint custody or kind of child support, a series of pieces around, child support or different people having custody of the children. Mm-hmm. I think resources, especially there was a question around people who are divorced or separated, non-custodial parent might be claiming. So there's also some complexities related to that.
There's no question. It's a very common fact pattern. And I think the fact pattern that we hear most often in this context is families who maybe there are two parents who trade off who claims a kid year to year, right? And you ask yourself, wait, if I'm supposed to claim the kid next year, then should I be getting these payments now? Right now, the way the IRS's systems are working is the parent who claimed the kid last year will be getting those advance payments. However, if you are eligible, if you are eligible to claim the credit next year, then that second parent should claim the credit next year, even if the first parent was receiving advance payments. If you're eligible to claim the credit next year, you should do so, and you will be eligible to receive the full payment.
And then is it also on the child support side protected from garnishment for debt possibly owed? And there, sort of questions either to the state or the government for other debt.
So this one is a little bit nuanced, so bear with me. But there are kind of two ways that debts can be collected. One is that you have an outstanding federal debt, and the federal government says, before we give you your refund or some other source of funds, we will offset that refund. And so that you don't get the full amount, it's reduced, right? And that's something that happens with respect to federal tax debt. That is something that happens with respect to child support too sometimes. That will not happen in the case of these child tax credit payments. They are exempt from what we call offset. That is distinct from after the money's in the bank account, can it be garnished by state, local, or private creditors from that bank account? That it's going to depend on the rules state by state. So there's no federal prohibition on garnishment, but different states have different rules. For example, California has said these funds won't be garnished in California, but that will be depending on the particular circumstances.
Thank you. And I know there were a couple people that were chatting in questions that people have filed their taxes, but they haven't received the credit. Is there a resource to call or someone to, and maybe it was a paper filing that might delays?
So if you filed your taxes and you claimed a child, and you're kind of thinking I should be receiving payments, but I'm not, then there are a couple of avenues open to you. The easiest one is to go on the IRS's website and log into their information portal, where you can log in and you can see your account and you can see if you're eligible. You have to do some identity verification, but if you can, once you do that, you can see, am I eligible for payments, am I not? And if you're not, then there could be information there, or you might be able to call the IRS at that point to see if there's an issue, a specific issue with respect to your advance payments. We have heard stories where someone files a return, but there was an issue with the return, so it took longer than usual for the IRS to process that return. In those instances, it would be the case that it could be that there's a holdup, but that if the return gets processed successfully, payments would start.
Okay, thank you. And then there's was a question about youth whose parents are undocumented immigrants. Are those families eligible?
Very, very good question. So the child needs to have a social security number. The parents or parent can have either a social security number or an ITIN, an individual taxpayer identification number. You do need one of those. You can't receive it if you don't have an ITIN, but there is no social security number requirement. You can have an ITIN or a social security number as the person filing, claiming the credit, but the child that you are claiming does need to have a valid social security number.
And is it a long process to get an ITIN if one doesn't have one?
To get an ITIN, you have to apply to the IRS, and it's not, it's typically, I think, a few months. I don't want to provide anything too precise without having the precise information, but it is something that we definitely encourage folks to do, because it does, unveil the potential to get not just the child tax credit, but other benefits as well.
Great. And then there were some questions about, will this money be reflected as income on their tax returns next year? Do these families not get their earned income tax credit next year with this new program? So this does not count as income, and this is important. It doesn't count as income for the purposes of your tax return. It also doesn't count as income for the purposes of eligibility requirements for programs like SNAP and WIC and housing benefits and Medicaid and SSI and others. So it does not count as income, and nor would it affect an individual's eligibility for the earned income tax credit. And then are families required to pay the money back when they do their taxes?
So this is a good question. There are two ways that families can receive the benefit, right? They can receive in advance payments. For families who are receiving advance payments, they can choose, they can go on to that same information portal I mentioned earlier, and they can choose, say, I actually prefer to, I'm going to unenroll from advance payments because I just prefer to all receive it at a lump sum at the end of the year. But this is all a tax credit. This is all benefit. It's you get to keep it. It's not something you have to pay back. And remember that the credit itself was expanded dramatically for these families. So families on the whole are getting much more benefit from this program.
And then there were a couple questions about youth, especially youth maybe who's a 17-year-old but will turn 18 by December. Will that child be eligible? And then also, I know there's a question about youth who are sort of given legal independence, emancipated from foster care, I guess. I think I see the person who's asked the question to Corey, if there are certain considerations for that.
So the first one is the relevant age for the termination is the age at the end of the year. So if you do turn 18 during the year, then even if you're 17 now, you're not eligible that child. That child is not eligible, to be claimed for the child tax credit. With respect to emancipated foster youths, I think the question would be: is there anybody who is living with that child and kind of caring for that child in a way that they would meet the eligibility criteria in general? So.
And then there was a question around, are supplemental security income recipients eligible for benefits, or will this, and if so, will this impact their SSI eligibility?
So SSI recipients are eligible for benefits. They just have to, and in fact, SSI kids, we think that's like a really potentially important population for us to reach here. So, going to get CTC for those folks is a really good option. Like those other federal programs, SSI, this does not count as income with respect to the SSI determination. SSI also has a means test. Social Security Administration has made clear that this doesn't count as for the means test for a year after received. It wouldn't be factored into the means test as well. SSDI, again, also eligible to receive the child tax credit if you're enrolled in SSDI as well, and it wouldn't affect that benefit. That was me just responding to a question I saw in the chat. Sorry, I freelanced a little bit there.
Great. No, thanks. I'm glad you're able to see it in real time, because there's a lot of them. I'm trying to go through them. There is, I think this might be like a kind of unique situation, but if another payer claims a child from a different mother, and is there, I guess, the money going, let's see, but owes support to another parent for a different child? Seems like it's getting complicated. Or is there a way to get around having the money for one child not be taken for another? I think that.
So I think in circumstances where people feel like the wrong parent is getting payments this year, if there's a parent that feels like they're eligible, that parent should claim that child on their tax returns next year, because if they're ultimately eligible to receive the credit, they'll receive that full payment when they file.
Okay, I know we're coming up on time, and it definitely is questions that are still coming on. Maybe there's one more. Let's see. I'm just looking at this one thing. How soon can a parent apply for the benefit after a baby is born?
So again, this gets to the point we were getting to earlier about the process for new parents. All new parents will be eligible to claim the credit next year, as long as they meet the other eligibility criteria we've already discussed. And with respect to claiming the child this year, before then, the IRS will be providing more information on that.
Great. Thank you so much. I think, Deborah, I know we wanted to also just, I know we're almost right at the time, and just so grateful for all the questions, but I'll turn it over to Deborah. You may have a question, and I know, thank you, Michael and Jasmine and Ted for joining. So thanks. Oh, and you're on mute, Deborah. First up.
I hope that the volume issue is fixed and that everyone can hear me well. Wonderful, good. Thank you, Melissa, for pulling today's event together in partnership with the White House. Thank you, Michael, for answering questions. I know that these are key for our navigators and volunteers. And thank you, Yasmin, for walking through the key points of this initiative. So thank you all and all of the presenters. I know that was a lot of information for everyone who's listening in and who registered for the training. As Yasmin mentioned earlier, you will receive a follow-up email with links and materials that you can use for your work with families. We are excited about this partnership and we appreciate your participation and enthusiasm about getting more families enrolled. We know that this is only the first step, and now we hope you will use the information to take action with families. I want to challenge each of you who came today to commit to helping at least 5 families enroll in CTC in the next 2 weeks. That's how ambitious we want to be. We are here to support your efforts. As I mentioned, we and other federal partners across government will continue to reach out. We are leveraging our regional offices, and we're also committed to working directly with families and have parent voice guide our strategies. We are excited to share more about that really soon and on our efforts to reach families directly and have them share the messaging on this front. So share your feedback and ideas, questions with us in the chat now and send us an email. We also put that in the chat. We put the external affairs email in the chat, Melissa.
I'll do that now. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your commitment to our nation's children and families. That concludes this call. So I'll hang on just for a few more minutes to ensure that you have our email in the chat. All right, Melissa. Talk to you
Thanks.
later.
We'll wrap up. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.